Welcome to The Jump. It is October 16th, 2023. I'm Rich Bowers, joined by a familiar face, Matthew Truelove. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Rich.
And we have a new guest with us, Orquidia Moreno. You may have seen her highlighted in Cognitia's article on Gen AI and technical education. Thanks for joining us, Orquidia.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Happy to have you. So let's just jump right into it. Now, in the news recently, you may have seen the MGM resorts as well as Caesars had a couple of security breaches. And it is just recently released that the CEO said that they refused to pay the ransom. Orquidia, can you tell us about this cybersecurity breach? What happened?
Mm-hmm. So basically, this group that had attacked MGM had been in their system since early September. And what had occurred is one of these individuals had found an employee from MGM Resort on LinkedIn. And just using the information on their profile, they were able to impersonate them. Basically, they called into the organization's help desk and said, "Hey, help, I am locked out of my account. I need to get back in." And there was no proper verification. There was no authentication done in order to ensure that this user was who this user said. And this was just a very simple social engineering scam without really any pushback. It was just very simple to get in from there. And from that get-go, they were in the system. They were able to access some very private information. And when MGM noticed and wanted to stop the attack, they even had just even some internal organization issues because their network engineers didn't have a proper grasp of how deep these hackers had gotten in, and as well, like what information they had to kind of continue on their attack. Because some of them actually had kind of like high admin credentials. And as they were trying to kind of keep the regular users off the system, it wasn't working, right? They couldn't stop them from accessing different sets of information. So over a period of days, they ended up having to shut down a lot of their core services, what ended up with a lot of blackouts and just things like hotel check-ins not working, and just it ended up being a lot of a failure of not understanding their infrastructure and not having proper security protocols.
Wow. All through phishing, VISHING, right? So gaining access through phone calls. Interesting that you say that too. I don't know if you've read the Fancy Bear Goes Fishing by Shapiro. Actually, a very similar thing happened for one of the mobile companies quite a handful of years back, all through a simple way of doing it, right, as you would see. So as we know, MGM was shut down for 9 days straight, and they announced it cost them about $100 million. So quite expensive. And even another company hit, Clorox, recently mentioned how these cyber attack ransoms are crushing them. One last thing before we jump off here, Orquidia, ransomware as a service that's used in this situation, right? Once they were in there, what is ransomware as a service?
So basically, per se, if you are thinking about an attack, especially an attack of this kind of magnitude, you're thinking, oh, this is some elite group of hackers who have like vast knowledge on different, systems, cloud, programming, all this. But it's actually as easy as a regular non-technical kind of person just buying software off of someone and saying, "Hey, you've already created the ransomware. Can you give that to me and I will operate and launch the attack?" And it's simple enough that as long as you have a understanding of how to proceed, you really don't need to know kind of the intricacies underneath.
It's insane, right? And this group, I think it's called a Scatter Spider. Typically, when they're buying ransomware, the people that are selling it, usually teenagers or people in their young 20s, low 20s. Thank you for that, Orquidia. Let's jump over to our next topic. This one's exciting, and we have Matt to cover it for us. So Amazon recently launched its first 2 satellites into space for orbital internet service. Matt, you are Amazon expert in every step along the way, specifically cloud. But in this case, what does this mean?
Yeah, so a little bit of a backstory is, of course, Amazon and AWS. But AWS has a service called Ground Station, which allows you to configure your own infrastructure of satellite communication. So it's a service that they've had their hands in for a little bit for weather imaging, comms, all that sort of stuff. Amazon, though, has this new initiative to support its own means to support broadband internet, as well as to support ground station called Project Kuiper. Kuiper, a reference to the planetary scientist, Dutch American scientist from the 20th century. And it is going to allow, it's like 3,200 satellites in low Earth orbit to increased broadband internet to underserved communities around the world, right? Around the world. So it's Amazon's initiative. It'll have implications for everything in their ecosystem, including AWS.
Very cool. And we know Kuiper is also famous for his belt, I believe, as well. So with this, they are going up against SpaceX Starlink. You have any more insight on that? What does that competition mean, and what may be some of the results?
Yeah, it's really just the backing in that competition, which is a very good set to have for the underserved communities, right? In terms of competition, this is one that benefits globally. You obviously have SpaceX with the backing of Elon Musk and all those entities of that organization, and then of course Amazon behind what's happening with Kuiper. So competition that is a win-win for everyone trying to increase internet coverage.
Awesome. Yep, hitting the rural areas as well as any other place that are hard to reach.
Yeah,
Might help out with some of those cloud gaming access as well.
yeah.
Right.
I
Good.
Actually, I was going to say I saw one of the Starlink launches out in Central Texas a few months ago. It was the weirdest thing. It was at night, and it was like a series of stars moving in a perfectly straight line, evenly spaced across one another,
Wow.
and just rapidly moving across the sky. And we're sitting there trying to figure out, what is that?
First thing you think of, aliens.
Yeah,
But
aliens or Starlink. Yeah.
awesome. Well, there's going to be a lot more of those satellites. 3,200 Amazon satellites going up within the next 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
You may think that's a lot. SpaceX already has 5,000. 5,000. All right, head on over to our second to last topic before we get to the cool tech of the week. We have Orquidia covering the writer's strike. So as we know, the writers right now in Hollywood were on strike, and it looks like it's coming to an end. But one of their big focuses and what we'll talk about here is that they wanted to get contracts that prevent AI replacing them at their jobs. From a technical perspective, Orquidia, what else should we know about this strike?
Yeah. So basically, we know that the writers wanted better pay, better working conditions, all of that. Pretty much any union wants that. But when you were looking at kind of the overall, like, big topic within this entire strike was AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time it's ever come up in any of the previous writer strikes. So over the last year, there's been a growing awareness and popularity on Gen AI technologies, especially thanks to ChatGPT. And when that kind of happens, a lot of, let's just say, business-minded people are going to want to say, hey, how can we use this to innovate and also save on costs? But because of that, right, because they want to optimize, save on workload, writers are feeling that AI could kind of infringe upon not only just jobs, but kind of credit where credit is due. So they were demanding that AI not be there to kind of cut jobs, to miscredit work. And also, they had a lot of worries that there would be a lesser quality with the storytelling that put forth. So they were doing a lot, and even towards the end, even mentioning editing of scripts or rewriting of scripts. So they put forth the argument that, hey, AI is not perfect, right? I've used ChatGPT to even do things like convert binary numbers to their decimal value, and I've gotten wrong results too. And so They were kind of really pushing to say that, hey, restrictions need to happen and we can't just let companies handle that on their own. We even need to take it even legally, right? Beyond that. Because right now, technologies like this are being fed data from works of many writers and many creative individuals. That's the reason why we have things like Midjourney, right? That's the work of kind of learning and feeding from other artists. And so the leading demands from that are kind of putting this kind of in the forefront and kind of leading the cause, because now too, the Actors Guild is still on strike and they are looking to kind of finalize as well. They want to end their strike as well soon, and they were kind of in collaboration on their own. And one of the kind of demands from the Actors Guild is now, hey, you can't just use AI to take my likeness and then reuse it as many times as you want for background actors or anything. And recently, too, the video game industry with their voice actors are also going on strike, because they are seeing something similar with kind of like those deepfake voices that are coming about, and saying,
Mm-hmm.
well, now they can just steal my voice and not need to pay me in the future. So it's kind of almost infringing on the right of like something that is just you, right? They're stealing your likeness, your creativity. And they want to have those creative concepts their own selves. Also, exec can make this decision that they can just take what is me and put it into some sort of Gen AI technology.
Interesting. So, Orquidia, real quick, the solution plan. I know there's some things that are going into place to protect live artists right now. For instance, Dolly 3, as we talked about in our last section, will decline requests that ask in the style of a living artist. Briefly, in about 30 seconds here, what is their solution that they're proposing? Do you know yet?
Yes. So basically, based on what I talked about before, they're demanding that you can't use AI to edit scripts, right? Rewrite. You have to have more transparency of whether AI was used before creating material that's going to be handed to writers too. So there's a lot of that, but because situations are going to change, scenarios are going to change, technology is going to change. They're still set in the next 3 years that the Writers Guild is going to meet with the AMPTP, who represent all the major studios, and say, hey, twice a year we have to meet and check in where we are, because if things change, we want to be able to kind of react to those changes in the moment.
Good. Good. And a little proactive in the future as opposed to the reactive one that's happening right now. Excellent. And let's move on over to our tech of the week. This one's pretty neat. So recently, Adobe released a new icon. I don't want to tell you too much because we have Matt here. Matt, what's up with this new icon? What's the big deal?
Well, perfect flow here from Orquidia talking about the writer's strike and intellectual property protections. We know that we have generative AI such as Midjourney and other tools to make artwork, right, and visualizations. Well, Adobe specifically is part of a coalition of a few other companies I'll talk about in just a second. They've made an icon to go on their generative images to indicate sources, right? Sources that were used to create the images. And so it's a new symbol for tagging AI generated content. It's going to be adopted by their partners of the organization, which is the Coalition for Content, Provenance, and Authenticity. Adobe, BBC, Intel, Microsoft, the Publicis Group, Sony, and True Epic are all members of this coalition. And it's to protect artists in the graphic standpoint instead of the writing standpoint that Kitty was just talking about.
Very cool. So then this is going to be this icon that you hover over and basically it gives you a drop down of information. Is that kind of what they're expecting?
It should show origins and traces. That's what they want to show. They want to give credit to the originating artist.
Okay. And with our last remaining minute, we do want to hit on one more topic. So Adobe at the same time is creating Firefly. Can you tell us what that is? And then is there some conflicting aspects about this new icon and kind of Adobe's stance of being able to push for AI identifications with what they're doing with Firefly.
Yeah, so I mentioned Midjourney for image generation, but Adobe's got their own product, Firefly, for image generation, also manipulation too. So you can take starting images in like you would with After Effects or something like that, Adobe Pro, but you can even more enhanced modify images as well as generate new ones from that. So yeah, a little bit of conflict. There was a convention earlier this year, though, with the Content Authenticity Initiative, where Adobe said artists could do a Boolean value of train or do not train when they're looking for their originating images in the model.
Interesting, right? So still a little bit that actually prevents users from mimicking some of that stuff. So it's interesting on how that turns out, but it's nice to see that there is some ownership and accountability being led at the same time. So with that being said, we covered a lot of great topics. Orquidia, Matthew, thank you for both being here. For the Jump by Cognitia, I'm Rich Bowers. Take care, everybody.